evening, everyone. It's Sunday at 10 p.m. It's time for the APAT Show. Of course it is. And Leigh, we have a bit of a special one for the guys tonight. Tell us, what are we doing?
Well, it's the week before the World Cup starts in Qatar, so we thought we'd get a few people on to have a chat about that and all things football for what's going to be, well, it's going to be blasted into about a 4-week period, isn't it? So it's going to be a shortish World Cup, but so that's the aim. So we thought we'd cover everything there is to talk about the Qatar World Cup. Before we do that, though, Des, I'm just going to give my usual poker shout out because it is that time of the night on a Sunday night. It's the final one of the week. It's the APAT Show Turbo Knockout. We've just gone into level 10, that final level, if you want to get involved in that. Already 53 runners in that. It's $11 buy-in. So you've got just under 6 minutes if you want to get involved in that one. Play a little bit of poker whilst you listen to all of us talk about football for the next 90 minutes. And with that, I should say a very warm welcome to Natalie Bromley, to JP Round, and to Dan Williams. Good evening to you all.
Hello.
How are we doing, guys? I see he's nipped out for a wee. There he is. He's back. Guys got to do what a guy's got to do, right, JP?
Well, thank you for announcing my movements to the world. Let's appreciate that.
When you say movements, was it more than a wee?
The thing is, I'm going to need to go at some point for real. People think that man needs to see somebody.
Absolute. This stuff happens. It's the reality of our TV.
Des.
Listen, we've got a bunch of you out there. Now, Leigh, we're going to be talking about the World Cup tonight. We're going to be following the leaderboard ladders as well as it comes to conclusion of the week. But you've overlaid our World Cup discussion with an interesting additional item. Why don't you tell the guys just to get them set?
Yeah, so the plan is we've got lots to go through. So obviously we're going to talk through all of the different groups at the World Cup and our predictions of what we think is going to happen. But everybody on the show tonight has selected a £10 charity bet based on something to do with the World Cup, which we're looking to try and raise some money for Hearts of Queens Christmas Appeal, which Natalie will be able to tell us a little bit more about at some point during the show, I'm sure. But I had this brainwave an idea in the green room whilst we were about to go live, and I thought we've got 5 bets on, but wouldn't it be great to have a 6th bet? So we thought, well, let's get a bet from somebody in the chat. So you've got a bit of time to think about this, but we're looking for a nice bet that we think might earn a little bit of money for Hearts of Queens. Get them in the chat box. We'll pick one of them, and we'll add that to the ones we've already placed and create a 6th bet. So get your minds thinking. Something with a little bit of longevity, so we got a little bit of a sweat on during the World Cup, maybe. Lovely. We don't want it to be, the result of the first game, because that's pretty, that's pretty boring. But yeah, try and come up with something. So you've got a bit of time to do that. Get it in the chat. Des will select them from whether we're on, because of course we're on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, or if you're watching on the APAT website, where you have to jump onto one of the others to chat. But basically, get involved and do that if you want to. Let me just quickly run through where we are with Leaderboard Ladders, because there is a poker going on tonight, and it's probably best I just give a couple of shout-outs to before we get heavily into the football and talk about that. So I'll tell you what, it's a who's who of APAT names at the top of the leaderboard going into the final day today. Richard Smith is currently top of the table. Tom Clark is in second place, looking to do back-to-back wins. Wow. Had a really good result last week, so Tom is very much in the mix. Dylan Herbert, who is, I think, the only step fiver at the moment, is currently third. So Dylan's done very, very well in the past few weeks out of us. Tony Ross is 4th. Danny Weaver is 5th. So it's an absolute crazy list of players at the top of the table. Also in that top 20, Sean Randall, Tom Banks is there. Dan Smith is there. Heribert's in there as well. I've seen one, Dan Williams has been playing a little bit tonight. I don't know whether he's going to get enough points to affect that leaderboard. He's very quietly there, clicking buttons, I think, whilst going to talk about football as well. So we'll see how it goes. But just where we are tonight, we're on the final table of the main event. That's playing top 9, and we're down to 7 in that already. The PLO, well, we didn't invite Paul Haycock on the show, and we know he likes his football. And I think he's taking out his frustrations on the PLO main event tonight, because he's currently 2nd of the remaining 5 players. Top 4 are getting paid in that. So hopefully Paul's going to have a bit of run. I'm sure he'll be in the chat as well later on. And as I mentioned, the the APAT Show knockout. That's currently got 59 runners in now with 2 minutes if you want to get into that. And I mustn't forget the deep sack as well. That's still going with 6 players of the 57 in that. Fraser Lang is in there. Dave Clark is in there. Steve Ring from Ireland is in there. And Pontus Dahlgren from Sweden is currently chip leader in that one. So I will update all of those results as they go during the show. But obviously, we're kind of here to talk about football really tonight with only now 7 days. Well, I guess in 7 days' time, Des, the first game will have taken place. That feels about right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a 4 p.m. kickoff, if I'm not mistaken. It's that absolute corker, Qatar against Ecuador, as I believe, just full of stars and so anyhow, yes, Lee, you're quite right. The tournament will be in full flow, well, half flow, by this time next week.
Something along those lines. So what I thought we'd do before we start going into the groups, because we want to talk about the football and everything else, it would be remiss of us not to at least have a very brief discussion about the World Cup being in Qatar. Everybody seems to have had a view on it in the weeks leading up to it and their opinions. And there's been some very vocal views from, I saw one from a couple of the Lionesses in the past week. I think was it Beth Mead actually came out and said she just wouldn't watch it because she feels that strongly on that. So what's everyone's general take on the World Cup being in Qatar, the time of year that it is, the rights and wrongs of it? We'll keep it very, very brief and then we'll get on to the fun stuff. But I think it's right to have that conversation. Do you want to start, Natalie, and give us your thoughts?
I have zero problem with a Winter World Cup. I think at some point it was going to have to happen. I think if we don't open the door to a Winter World Cup, it alienates a lot of nations who could host it and do a good job. So I have no problem with that. I'm just hugely conflicted with the host being Qatar. As it stands now, I still don't know if I'll watch it or not. I feel like I always try and live my life in walk the talk. I don't feel right to discuss the various issues with it and then support it and watch it. So I don't know. I'm hugely conflicted. It's horrible.
The deathly silence.
Sounds like we've done it, Lee. Sounds like we've done that one to death already.
Not sure what else you can add to that, but sorry.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? It's a tricky one to know. What people and people have got to be firm in what they believe. I mean, JP, what's your thoughts around it?
It's nothing out of the ordinary. Similar views to a lot of people. Natalie makes a really good point there about a Winter World Cup. Yeah, shouldn't have an issue with that. First time I've really heard that expressed. Yeah, that should be no problem if we need to adjust our calendar accordingly. It does feel weird, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There's Premiership games today. And like you say, in 8 days' time, the England team will be playing. That's the one sort of silver lining, I guess. You haven't got these weeks and weeks of nonsense coverage build up about, which wag's doing what, because they've just got to fill pages and pages of pre-match, or pre-tournament build up. So that's been good to get that out there.
That's good.
The whole thing's just, if you go right back to the announcement, announcing 2 at the same time, whatever year it was, we're going to announce Russia 2018, but we're also going to just sneak in this Qatar announcement and get that done and dusted. Kind of blindsided a lot of people, I think, way back then. The whole thing, it just stinks, doesn't it? But is it just, are we just more aware of it than we were previously? There aren't many countries out there that can look themselves in the mirror without any concerns, are there? So I don't know. I'm not as maybe not as principled as Natalie. I will be watching for sure. But it feels very, very different. I lost a lot of love for the game a long time ago, but I do enjoy, these big events. And I got swept along last year. I got swept along in 2018 by, our country's best performance we've seen in a long time. So yeah, I look forward to it, but nowhere near as much as I have done in the past.
I think for me, the Winter World Cup's quite depressing. I think for the first time in my life, I'm in the top 20,000 in FPL Fantasy Premier. So having a break is not what I'd want. Normally, I've quit by now. So I mean, I suppose I'm less conflicted on whether I'll watch it because I'll be honest, with a young family and the time of games, I don't really have a decision. I'm probably not going to have a chance to watch many games anyway, which isn't a reason not to watch it. But I suppose it's less in my kind of first thoughts. JP says it well. It stinks, right? They chip shot papered it on a Friday afternoon and snuck it in with Russia. And is it good? No. Will a lot of people still watch it? Absolutely. Am I going to be one of them? I think the jury's out. Ask me again next week and I'll tell you if I've watched a game, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel like a World Cup this time around, and I don't think that's because of the winter. I think that's more to do with the location.
Well, I'll tell you one thing which I hadn't even given it a thought, but after the crushing United victory against Fulham this afternoon, I mean, we were immense. They interviewed Bruno Fernandes, and he came out with something which he actually said, he had concerns over the World Cup and how but he raised a very good point. He said, well, normally this World Cup's are when the schools are off. So kids can watch it. I thought, I'd not even thought of that as a thing that actually, because a lot of the games are during the daytime and it's in school time. So it does feel like it does miss out on a lot of people that maybe will just, haven't got the time or are doing other things to be able to watch some of the games. And surely that's the whole point of it, is it needs to be entertainment and something that people are going to watch and remember. And if actually you're just having to catch up with the games as and when you can, does it have the same appeal? I'm not.
I hadn't heard that, Lee. I saw a headline. I think I don't know whether he's referring to Portugal, but he might have got his timings a little bit wrong there, because the last few World Cups, they've all been over by sort of early to mid-July, and they're still very much in school then. So,
okay, fair enough.
That side. And I mean, far be it for me to call you out, Lee, it's a little bit embarrassing. The fact that you've sunk to a point that you have to celebrate a last-minute winner against Fulham, you wouldn't have been doing that 10 years ago. Come on.
Definitely not. No, absolutely not. No, completely.
Something from my perspective, and I think lots of people have a very similar perspective with their own unique things. Because, what I've been doing for the last sort of 17, 18 years is working with pubs and working with particular tournament sponsors as well. And I mean not because I'm a raving alcoholic, that's another story. But I'm in 5, 6, 7 pubs a day with my job, and no one's dressed it up. No, it really isn't. Believe me. No one has dressed up their pub. No one's really getting massively behind it. You're not seeing those displays, those flags. There's a few of them thinking, well, maybe we'll get a few in for that Monday game, which is you're not cannibalizing any existing trade, but there's no excitement in the pub trade like there is normally. And funnily enough, JP and I were talking about this on Wednesday night when we took in the delights of Southampton versus Sheffield Wednesday in the Carabao Cup, which was... We do our research for you, Des. We go to the top fixtures to see what's going on in football, It was an extraordinary experience. It really was. But actually, and you, JP, you made a very, very good point that even we were chatting about this. I was, Stu. Obviously, November, December for the pub trade is their busy time of the year, because people are out, Christmas drinks, Christmas parties, all that kind of thing. And the World Cup actually at that time of year doesn't really help them very much from a point of view of trying to, add to their takings or whatever. So they're kind of probably going to miss out a little bit because of it. Yeah.
Do you know what my view is? For what it's worth, it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing. We all have to adapt to a bit of change. So first and foremost, absolutely buy the school thing. I think you're quite right there. But how many games do we actually watch at a World Cup, right? Not that many. Nobody sits down and watches 3 or 4 games a day, I don't think. But actually, the thought of having, no, you don't. You really do. Well, maybe you do. Maybe I do too, but I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, I wouldn't be sitting down and watching Qatar and Ecuador, for example, if it wasn't the opener. I'll probably watch it because it's the opener, but it's not a game that I'm looking forward to. And having thumbed through all of the group games, there's a couple of absolute beauts in there, but there's a lot that aren't what I would call games that I would want to sit down and watch. So if you take it from that angle and sort of think, well, they're winter evenings, if you're going to watch it from your home or if you're going to go to the pub, just having football on every night is going to be fun and exciting anyway. I think the atmosphere will kick in once England, scored their 3rd against Iran in the opener tomorrow week. I think it will start to kick in. The problem this time is, of course, you haven't had that 2 to 3 week build-up that JP mentioned earlier. That doesn't exist. You've had Premier League games this weekend. We'll have the World Cup next weekend. It's a highly unusual situation. So I think it will start to build then, providing England get a good result in the first game or two. But thereafter, I think the really big picture item as far as Qatar is concerned is the human rights issues and what have you. And I think, everybody has been down on that and quite rightly, I'm not going to watch the World Cup, et cetera, et cetera. But my view is this is, potentially an opportunity for a change in the region. And, maybe the Qataris are going to find out that if a man holds another man's hand walking down the street going to a game, that actually the country won't burn down, and maybe it can be a positive catalyst for change.
That's not going to happen, Des.
Well, look, I don't know, but if the World Cup can't help to do that, I don't see it happening through any other single event. So you're right, Natalie. I doubt that it will happen. It might take time, but at least something is going to occur there where that sort of behavior, call it what you will be visible on the streets of Qatar in a way that it wouldn't have been previously. And let's just hope that can in time lead to greater acceptance, because it's a crazy situation out there right now. So
I think what it has done is it's definitely opened up these conversations. Because some of you probably know, I live very close to Cheltenham Racecourse, and actually Cheltenham Festival, the horse racing festival, has a ridiculous amount of human trafficking problems that people kind of knew about, I guess, but it wasn't mainstream media. It wasn't talked about. And interestingly, since the announcement of Qatar and kind of all of the issues that end, it's starting especially local. It's started to be talked about and discussed because it's not a nice conversation, but a lot of Eastern European women are actually hauled over for Cheltenham Festival for reasons you can imagine, and it goes under the radar and people don't talk about it. And it's locally, it's really this whole conversation. Some of it, I guess, is based off the back of Qatar, but it's definitely become prevalent as a conversation, and there's a lot going on locally in our kind of constituency here to really kind of put a stop to that. So, although will the problems in Qatar change? Probably not, but I think the fact that a voice is being heard and other conversations are now having off the back of it in sort of local areas can only be a positive, I suppose, if they can influence some of those changes. So,
yeah, I think the problem in Qatar is that it's not social behaviour that needs to be criminalised. It has its roots deeply in religion, and it's the classic universalism versus cultural relativism argument. And the Qataris don't think that they're doing anything wrong, and it's part and parcel of their culture and their religion. So if they have the Western world putting a spotlight on their atrocities, they don't think that, the human rights issues, I guess, slightly different, but certainly the making same-sex marriage illegal and not just that, the lack of acceptance for homosexuality or anything is just shocking. And but they don't think that they are in the wrong. They think we are in the wrong. So but shining Natalie, a light on this isn't going to change it.
Yeah, but Natalie, that can't be the case, because if you look at, is it in, I might be completely wrong on this, but is it like in Northern Ireland where can same-sex marriage happen there? I don't know. Something just in my mind just thinks maybe not. I'm not entirely sure.
Actually, I think they've just overturned. They've just repealed the fifth, the third. So they've got rid of anti-abortion. But yeah, you're right. This is the point.
But let's go back 20, 30 years, right? If a woman had a child and she was not married, right? You go back to somewhere like Ireland, 30, 40, as recently as that. In many cases, the child was taken away. And today, that's not a problem. It's just not a problem. Whereas back then, and that was completely religion orientated, right? The Catholic Church and unmarried mothers and, sex before marriage and all of that sort of stuff was about as serious as anything that happens in Qatar. So you're quite right. It might not happen today or tomorrow, but if we project forward 10 to 20 years, maybe we'll start to see some change. Because Yeah, I hope so. But it's going to take something big to do it. And I don't think there's anything bigger than a World Cup. And if the Qataris think that the price of, sort of being accepted by the Western world and the rest of the world to receive these types of events is some sort of movement in terms of the way that they view these areas that are a problem for them, that can't be a bad thing, right? It can't be a bad thing. It's a bigger opportunity. I think it's a bigger opportunity potentially to straighten that out in the longer term than it is having a Winter World Cup, or than it is having some bribes taken, which may very well have been the case in terms of how Qatar got this thing. So now that they've got it, I'm prepared to be open and hopeful that something good comes of it. I'm not entirely sure it'll be the football, I have to say. I think the World Cup's pretty open. But, maybe longer term, who knows? In our lifetime, maybe there will be some positive change because, I think back to Ireland 30, 40 years ago, the sort of change we've seen over there today, I don't think was perceived as possible back then.
We'll see. I hope so. I hope you're right.
So listen, a bunch of you out in the chat box, guys, say hello, have your say. We're going to come on, I suspect, Leigh, and talk about the football now. I haven't seen anybody yet submit a World Cup bet. It's not like our viewers to miss out on a value opportunity, I have to say. But, who do we have out there?
Maybe they want to see what we pick. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Yeah,
see what we pick. Absolutely, and stay away from those. So Triplin says, good evening, everyone. Good evening to you, sir. Tony Ross is there as well. Evening all. And Triplin says, holy smoke, the Welsh shirt makes an appearance from the back of the wardrobe. So it does. Now, one Mr. Bacon says, pretty sure that's not true. He said this about 10 minutes ago. Can't remember exactly what that was referring to.
That's referring to the school. It's referring to the school thing. So yeah.
Okay. So the World Cup was always on during school, as far as I remember. Good point. The Oracle is out there. Evening to you, Simon. Simon Allen is out there. Hi all. Hi to you, Simon. Eddie's out there as well. Good evening to you, sir. So a bunch of you out there. Do say hello. Mr. Haycock's come in. It was bad enough before Blatter said it was a mistake to give it to Qatar, like an arsonist rubbing his chin on the ashes. It's true. What was the cost of that decision? That is the question. So do get your questions or your thoughts in the chat box. We'll follow those through the evening. But also, if you've got a bet that you'd like to make on the World Cup, here's your chance, right? Leigh said there's a free tenner in there. The winnings will go to Natalie's group. Okay, Hearts of Queens. So over to you, Leigh. Where to next, sir?
Let's go. Let's work our way through the groups, and we'll have a chat about briefly about what we think is going to happen with each one. So best place to start is always going to be is Group A, which is always a good place to start. Which has got the as the hosts, Qatar, Ecuador, Senegal, and the Netherlands. So the Netherlands getting in as one of the playoff places, so they kind of end up being one of the bottom seeds. But do we see? I suppose the first question is: do we see the hosts actually making any sort of impact in this tournament from a point of view of earning points in the group?
I wouldn't have thought so, unless local conditions can, play a massive factor. I'm hearing good things about Senegal. I'm hearing people are saying they could be our second round or quarterfinal if we go straight to quarterfinal opponents. So that's a bit concerning. To say that should be Netherlands as the bottom seed, and they'll be loving that draw, won't they? They'll be loving that group. So yeah, I did hear something. I'm not sure how tongue in cheek it was. One of the journalists predicting a 5-0 win for Ecuador this time next week. So.
Gotta say, the 90s kids amongst us cannot say the other team in that group without breaking into the absolute Clubland classic that is that tune. And you'll all know. I know you all know what it is. You're younger than you are.
Are we thinking this is Netherlands group to win, and then it's going to be a coin flip between Ecuador and Senegal?
No, I think I'm financially invested in Ecuador here. I think they're the dark horses in this group. I think matchup, styles make matchups. Netherlands should win this group at a canter, but I think Ecuador have got a really physical and skillful team. Their qualification wasn't as straightforward as it could have been, but I think if you match them up versus Senegal, I think that they have enough to contain them. And I mean, financially, I'm invested in Ecuador. I suppose I should open up with I use the exchange a lot, so I'm not there for the long haul, but you're getting 270 to 1 for them to win it. And I think once they get out of this group, they will probably face England if Ecuador comes second. And actually, they're a terrible matchup for us too. Us and Gareth's defensive army that can't defend. So yeah, actually, I really fancy Ecuador in this group. I think they're the dark horses here.
Well, let's take a quick look at the Netherlands squad. Who are the standout players, would you say, for them, if we think they're going to they should be comfortable in this group? Defensively, they're super strong. I'm not sure whether they are as strong going forward as maybe Dutch teams in the past. Would that be a fair comment?
Yeah, I think so. But then look at
Weghorst, donkey.
a poor man's Chris Wood. Yeah.
Turns out it was not the second Chris Wood, as it turned out.
I mean, they do look a bit. They lack a bit. They lack a bit of exuberance up front, don't they? I mean, Depay's been around the block a few times now. I'm not sure he's doing it. Bergwijn is, I think, a decent player, but where he's going to end up is hard to tell. But you can't beat form. They've been in really good form. I mean, they've won a lot of games going into the World Cup.
I mean, the attacking options defensively are really strong. I think if you roll yourself back, Denzel Dumfries from Inter is phenomenal going forward. I mean, as an outside tip for me, for him to score in the group games, I'd be interested to see what the odds are, but he's certainly a powerhouse coming in from that right-hand side. And I think their midfield's pretty strong. You're right, strikers, I mean, they haven't got a huge amount, but they've certainly got enough to get through this group. And I think, looking at their draw going through, I'm just having a look at my scribbles. I think they end up playing the runner-up of our group if they win the group.
We've got a wall chart, guys. We can look.
Yeah.
Tom Bacon is saying, look.
But second,
I can tell you all you need to know about groups. Don't worry. I don't know who.
I'll tell you what, Tom.
They'll be naturally.
Tommy Bacon isn't having Kenneth Taylor as a Dutch performer, and I have to say, I'm not sure about Mr. Janssen either. He doesn't sound too Dutch to me, but there we go. It's an international game these days.
It's like when the Brazilians have their, Romarios and Ronaldos, and then they chuck in Fred. You just what happened there?
Oh.
So basically, we're saying Group A. We're thinking Netherlands should be comfortable top in the group, and there's different opinions and different views on whether it will be Ecuador and Senegal that finish second in the group. Obviously, whichever one of those it is likely to face. We'll move on to England's group next, Group B, but is likely to potentially be a knockout stage for England.
I think the only thing you'd add about Senegal, having heard a bit about Ecuador, is that obviously the current African champions. No mean feat winning that tournament. That's a tough win.
That's true.
The downside might be that I think Sadio Mane is a bit injured. He's in that period where sort of they're selecting him to go, but they're not entirely sure whether he'll make the first or second matches. So that, I think, would be a big miss for them. But
I thought he was out. I thought he was out completely. So
maybe he's gone. Maybe he's gone. But
and the other thing with Mane, I would say, in the same way that him leaving Liverpool has clearly had an impact on Liverpool season, he's gone to Bayern and not really found the same sort of form that he had when he was in that Liverpool team. It feels like an absolute lose-lose for both with that transfer. Really,
I bet you gutted, don't you, Lee?
Oh, devastated! Absolutely devastated. But it will be interesting to see what happens. If he does, there are a few squads. We'll come on to a few of the others where they have put injured players in that squad. I think Southgate decided against that, really,
I think he's right.
From an England point of view. But we will see. So talking of England, let's move on to Group B then, which is has got the mighty Wales in that team. So basically what we're saying is, which one do we think of England, Iran, and USA are going to get second? What's everybody's views on this?
Nice.
Not England. We're useless. I mean, can't we? Let's. I mean, I genuinely, before we came on air, tried to put a starting 11 together, and I struggled.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan. Shall we, before we actually talk about the rest of the group, let's jump to the England squad, because it will obviously have had a lot of views and comments. Obviously, I don't really care one way or the other, but for your guys' point of view, is there anybody in the squad that you think shouldn't have been in there? Is there anybody you think that was missing that should have been added to the squad? What's your take on it?
Where do you start? Who shouldn't be in that squad? How long's the show?
Yeah, exactly. Look, Southgate has done well as a manager. He has a method, he has a style, and it gets occasional 1-0s and we drag games out and do okay.
So
but with there's nothing exciting here, is there? Like, just look at the back four. I sat and tried to figure out a back four out of that dross, and I couldn't even put one together. I mean, he'll start Maguire. I'm a United fan. Leigh, Maguire shouldn't be anywhere close to that team. You've got players like Tomori, you've got Chris Smalling, you've got name a million centre backs that should be in ahead of him, but we know he'll start. So 90% of half of this squad's irrelevant because they won't get game time. There's no point even having them in there. He'll pair Maguire with Eric Dyer, so it's literally like Steptoe and Son running around. It's just crap.
Listen,
it's really
is. I don't remember a more uninspiring England squad for a long, long time.
But he's obviously going to play 3 at the back because he always has done, isn't he?
Why, if you're going to play 3 at the back, why are you including 7 strikers or forwards? It's I don't know. I mean, Declan Rice has to be the key. Calvin Phillips shouldn't even be close to the squad because he hasn't played has he played a minute of football this season yet?
Not very much. But coming back from injury.
I think he played a half last week.
Oh, well, fair play to him. Well done. And then, I don't know. I just think I'm really uninspired. It's literally carbon copy of what we had in the Euros, pretty much. I think, and he will play.
Listen,
this squad got to the finals of the Euros.
Listen,
this England squad has just got to a European final.
Yeah, and they're absolutely
and was at Nations League final. Surely.
But it's
all
also
the
same squad that's got relegated from the Nations League. Like, look, let's be honest. That team is not winning anything. If you look at the exchange right now, you can get 10-1 on England, and you can lay them at the same. And I suggest we lay as much money as we can because they are doing nothing.
But these are the players that just a couple of years ago in the Euros with this same manager that we all got really excited about, and football nearly came home, and we were talking about the start of a new era and something different. Like, how has it gone from that to so toxic within 2 years?
Yeah, I'm genuinely quite.
You
quite
guys, look,
that the view is like,
I've got to stop you for a minute, right? As a proud Irishman, I should be absolutely laughing at this, loving it, just sucking this up and enjoying it. But I think you're all absolutely mad. What the hell? Support your country. It's a World Cup. And you know what?
JP, please.
I'm not.
Add some sanity
to
this.
You've probably got one of the strongest squads in the World Cup. I think you're going to do well.
I wouldn't say
it's
that.
It's not about the squad. It's about the manager. He's got one trick. And what happened is
to be honest, that trick can win tournaments.
He can come second.
Are you kidding me? Come on, he was a couple of pens away from winning the Euros with this group of players.
JP, add some positivity.
Come on, JP.
I'm nowhere near as down on it as the two guys. I think we are.
Hey, I wasn't that down about it. Give me a break.
Because I think you look at that squad, I think, yes, there are real concerns, but I still think he's picked the right squad. When it was announced on, was it last Thursday? I thought, we couldn't have actually been much better. I'm quite happy with the likes of Calvin Phillips in there. I think he's proven. I think we're looking at a Bellingham-Rice axis to start with, so he can build on his, get more fitness, hopefully get a bit of game time. You can get momentum in tournaments. Yes, I'm worried that Southgate might have shown his hand already. I think he deserves a boatload of credit for what he's done. If you look at what he's achieved, with the obvious exception, I believe we won the World Cup once. We don't talk about it much. But with that obvious exception, he's got to be right up there as on results, one of the most successful managers we've had. If you look at what Sir Bobby Robson achieved, actually, Southgate's achieved more. Now it's a different time. We've got different investment in players. We need to give credit to that. But have we seen the best of him Possibly. Do we have a chance of 1-0, 1-0, 1-0 through to the knockout phase, build a bit of momentum? We've got some class players in that team to then carry us forward. Yes, we do. We do have a chance. 100% we have a chance. But yeah, I think we're about 5th, 6th favourites, and that's about right for me.
You've got to say, with that group,
yeah, it's a dream group. It's a dream group.
You've got to be saying, well, if we're not getting out of this group, then there's something very.
Well, when
very
you get
wrong
to the
here in
World Cup and only 2 of your opponents in the group are actually real countries, you've got to be onto a great. Come on, that's fantastic. And also we got Vasilios.
Oh, that's fantastic! Fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's a fair call. We're just glad to be there, making up the numbers.
Just look, you can win at football, but you're not going to sort of want to go to war with any of them. That's all that I'm saying.
So if we're assuming that England should top this group, again, it's another one, they should top this group. The other 3 would all probably feel they've got a fighting chance of doing something into second place. Is that again a fair enough comment?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I think Wales should take that.
I think I'd expect
should be Wales. It should be Wales. Yeah,
it should be Wales.
We kept Connor Roberts wrapped in cotton wool for you today, Lee. You'll be pleased to know.
Excellent stuff. That's what I like to hear. Yeah. But, I mean, obviously, it's Gareth Bale's swan song. So be interested to see whether he's having played out in the States, whether he's able to kind of turn it on for this particular tournament. But yeah, either way, as I've said on this show many a time, I never thought probably in my lifetime I'd see Wales in a major championship. That happened, and then to be making it into a World Cup, just
fantastic,
enjoying
right?
life.
You should do. You should enjoy every minute of it.
Absolutely,
absolutely. Just we'll go with that. So let's move on to Group C,
Where am I?
which has got Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, and Poland. And most of these groups, we're very much going to kind of go with the statement where we're going to go, well, we're kind of guessing X is going to win the group. Who else is going to finish? But
This
Argentina aren't as strong a squad as perhaps people might think. So again, before we have a look at the group, let's quickly look at the Argentinian squad. Obviously, it's headlined by Lionel Messi, again probably playing his final World Cup, or is that?
Yes,
or is
definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
But how much strength and depth is there? They're one of the favourites, but
The second favourite, actually. They're not that far behind Brazil to win this, which I find surprising. Actually, do I find that surprising? Maybe not.
I mean, their path to the final is pretty good. I think with their group. Have a look at your wall chart now.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Like if results go as we expect, they probably face a team like Denmark in the last 16, and then they end up potentially with like the Netherlands or the winner of that group, which I don't think is necessarily the toughest. And then they'll meet Brazil in the semis, which Brazil versus Argentina, anything can happen. I think we know that. So
fair.
Yeah.
So
This world chart's very convoluted. I'm sorry. Whoever drew it wasn't very successful. It doesn't follow a logical pattern. I'm going to put that to one side. Let's not worry about the world chart. Let's just move on. It's not helpful for today's project, people.
So do we think, obviously there's been an argument over the years that Messi's never really turned up to major tournaments. As prolific a goal scorer and an impact he's had on football, at Barcelona and now still doing it at PSG. When it comes to actually the major international tournaments, he's not really ever had much success. Do we think that this could be the one for him?
I mean, they've got a pretty juicy front line, haven't they? They've got, but again, I suppose is the manager going to be bold enough to utilize those forward players and potentially not give Messi just the ball constantly? Probably not. But Martinez, Di Maria, Dybala, they've got some great strikers and they've got some good playmakers. I think I know they're second favourites, but I quite like them in this. From a betting standpoint, I think they're great because their route to the final is good. So if if you approach things like I do, I think there's money to be made.
56. So they're probably going to.
I mean, the history. I would say
they'll face the runner-up of Group D, which is Denmark.
Yeah. No.
In the next round.
That's Group D there, which is the France, Denmark, Tunisia, and
in
Australia.
the quarters, they're going to get
probably they'll play the winner of, I think, Netherlands or Wales. So
I'm loving the cogs whirring from the pair of you trying to work out exactly how this is all going to.
I'm going to write a strongly worded letter to the person who created this wall chart.
So again, are we suggesting Argentina to win the group, and are we then coin flipping between Mexico and Poland, or do we think Poland will be?
I like Mexico. Actually, I really fancy Mexico in this to get out of this group. For any of you that like a punt, they're 240 to 1 to win the thing. When they get out of this group, they'll probably drop to about 200, so you can make 40 ticks, which is always good. But yeah, I don't know. Poland are another team that basically rely on one player, and I think Mexico are quite physical. So I think Mexico-Poland could be a good game for the neutral to watch, actually. But I fancy the two sort of South American teams to get through.
Simon Lawler in the chat says he thinks Argentina top, Mexico second. Yeah. It could just come down to that Mexico-Poland game as to whether they're going to see that through.
Let's see whether Lewandowski brings his boots, because he could absolutely make the difference in 3 group games.
Oh, absolutely.
Outside of that, the original question about Messi, I think history probably against him a little bit, Leigh, just based on performances previously at big events. Probably history against him being the star player at the World Cup. He hasn't had the greatest season at PSG. Might want to go back to Barcelona and finish there possibly. So he seems a bit unfulfilled, but I think Argentina will carry just a huge wave of support at home. There'll be a lot of passion there. So as long as they don't have an incredible faux pas in one of their opening games, I could see them going a distance.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. So on to Group D, which has got another one of the favourites in France. So France, Denmark, Tunisia, and Australia. Again, we're going to say, well, let's take a look at the France squad. Obviously, Pogba missing out through injury. Good riddance. But anyway, again, now that looks a proper strong squad, doesn't it? With so many. I mean, you feel like you could pick any 11 from that, and it would be a pretty strong lineup.
Yeah,
and they're only sort of 7.5 to 1 to win it, which is crazy. I think with that squad, they should be much shorter.
They're third favourites. I can't remember. Spain are fourth, aren't they? Yeah.
Spain are fourth favourites at 9 to 1. Yeah,
France
these guys are 8.4 at the moment on the exchange, which is.
I'm surprised. I would have thought France would have gone above Argentina, to be honest. Just looking at the squad depth. Yeah. I would have put Brazil, France, Argentina, Spain rather than.
So Paul Haycock in the chat says, apart from pay JP everyone's wages, he says he thinks England are going out in the quarters to France, but there's not really a lot more that Southgate could do with that England squad. So very much feeling that France will then be in the semi-finals and in with a good shout of the whole thing then.
But I think that's probably where these odds are that they can sit, that France
and I'm guessing they'd avoid the Brazil Argentina semi-final if everything went according to plan.
So yeah, I think the odds are probably dictated because France potentially will draw England like in the knockout stages. But yeah, if whoever gets through that is on the opposite side of both Argentina and Brazil. So yeah, definitely some value in France, and they just look phenomenal.
The only thing you might throw into the mix here is that when you look at that French squad, as indeed any French squad of the past, you just wonder, well, who's sleeping with whose wife or whose husband? Who's possibly bribing or kidnapping somebody else from within the squad? Which doctors might be involved? Who might lose their crypto billions during the tournament and actually break down in tears on a pitch? They're never that far away from a bit of a emotional disaster, are they, the French? May we?
There is always that possibility. But the tricky thing is genuinely, I think, keeping that entire squad, happy, because
a lot of
you just look at the strikers there. You've got Benzema, current Ballon d'Or, Mbappe, who's just arguably best player in the world at the moment. quite potentially. There's other players in there with big personalities that are going to want to do well. So if we're thinking France are going to top the group, Denmark for second
should be somewhat straightforward, I think.
Yeah, agree.
Tom Bacon.
Do we think Australia or Tunisia would have a shout at causing any sort of upset?
No, definitely not.
No.
You are Group D, Group E.
Yeah, Group E. Hang on.
We should just pick up on Tom Bacon's comment, which is that he thought
wasn't convinced by France's midfield.
Wasn't convinced about their midfield. But I guess if you're solid at the back and you've got that much attacking force, you just give them the ball and let them do their thing, I guess. So
Triplin is saying also that Kante a big loss, and Pogba, although maybe Pogba less so for France.
Yeah. We will see.
So moving more strength in depth in that squad than any other side in this World Cup, though. If you look at that French squad, they can just bring other players in, whereas you can look at weaknesses in other squads. So I don't think they're going to be as concerned with losses as some other sides are going to be. Denmark upset France.
Ooh. Yeah, Tom's just shout by us.
Tom Bacon's throwing out a ball today.
He's Danish, isn't he?
That's
home bias there.
So coming out Group E, then I guess I'm guessing we're calling this one the Group of Death potentially because it's got two of the big guns.
I like this one
up against it, but again, I guess we're not going to see anything other than Spain and Germany going through from this group.
No. Hold on.
We think there's a whole option here. Yeah.
So I'd agree with you. I mean, Spain and Germany, obviously the big favourites there, but I think the Japanese have a bit of form at World Cups. They'll have a huge support back at home. Costa Rica, obviously, also have a bit of surprise element to them. So I don't think Germany is strong as they have been previously. No. Spain don't always travel well. I think this could be the most interesting group of the lot.
Well, let's run through. I've got the squads for the big two in the group. So let's bring up Germany first, and you can have a quick look at who's made it.
And this was the only one, by the way. Now I'm looking at the non-England and Wales games. Thinking, what am I sort of setting the what's the appointments of you? Where do I want to be? And this was the only one. Spain, Germany. That's looking pretty decent.
Yeah. Now this is a fairly up and coming German squad. Yeah, lots of people in here that people might not be that familiar with. I mean, crikey, there's a Southampton defender in here, so that's that should tell you all you need to know. But interesting if they can gel together, and it's back to the momentum thing, JP, that you touched on earlier on. They've got the potential to go quite far in the tournament.
Yeah.
And let's have a look at the Spanish side.
I thought Neco Williams was turning out for Wales, Lee. Has he just jumped ship or what?
And he's moved from left back to a forward. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what do we think? Spain or is it pretty much a coin flip as to which one will top the group?
Well, I fancy Germany. I think they've got. I think they're more solid. I think Spain, stylistically, I don't know. I just feel like Germany will probably offer a bit more. I think Costa Rica's a good shout as like a potential upset, but Spain should have more than enough to get through, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but
interestingly, Spain are higher up in the betting rankings than Germany, so
much higher up.
Yeah,
I've tied my little bet into this group. I won't preview it just yet, but I think whichever of Spain or Germany tops this group, and I expect one of them to. I think there will be some points dropped here, but whichever of them tops it, I think will get quite a boost and could go quite a distance in the tournament because these are highly.
What's interesting is the winner of this group will probably face Brazil in the quarterfinals. So I don't know if that's why Spain are potentially better in the betting rankings because they would drop to the other side of the draw. But yeah, potentially whoever finishes second has a much easier route to final than whoever finishes first because of Brazil and Argentina being on that top side.
But we're making the assumption here that this Brazil is going to be far and away the best team in this World Cup? I'm not absolutely. It's just really hard to tell.
They only need to win that group, and I think they should win that group at a canter that they're in. But
yeah, I don't think Brazil would fancy taking on either Spain or Germany. They won't like that as a quarterfinal draw, I wouldn't have thought. But we will see. Time will tell. We
will see indeed. Let's move on to Group F, which has got the number one side in the world for a decent chunk of time, Belgium, along with Canada, Morocco, and the dark horse is Croatia in this group again, coming through into that bottom spot there. This Belgium squad is just, again, absolutely littered with talent, but are yet to really
flatters to deceive, I think, is the expression.
Perennial failures,
that's nicely
right?
put. Nicely put. What's our thoughts? We think is this the time where they all come together and really make an impact? They're not that high up the betting, are they?
They're a very functional side rather than a flat. And I think it's one of those where it's the old German tactic of you don't need to be entertaining and thrashing sides to win a tournament. You just have to be functional and win certain games. And that was very much the strategy that Southgate adopted in the Euros. And I feel like this side could do that. If they can just be functional and just get through what they need to do, then they could get pretty far. But it's so hit and miss with these guys. They can be. Go on, sorry.
I was just going to say it's whether the core of players that they've kind of used for these last 2 or 3 tournaments, whether they can build on that. They've kind of kept that real succinct core of kind of starters, and it's these new additions. If they can, I can't pronounce the guy's name, but the guy that plays for Club Brugge, is it Teketelare? He looks like a game changer. Him and De Bruyne in midfield could be something.
Sorry, I was just saying, you can't pronounce his name.
Apparently, he can't pronounce Club Brugge either. So, what I always find with these guys is, and it's not a unique take by any stretch, but the fact that they're number one in the world, and I think they've been off and on number one in the world, for quite a few occasions over the last 6-8 years, they've never won anything. And it's exactly like when, despite the fact that Phil Taylor was around, Colin Lloyd was the world number one in darts, wasn't it? He thought, how on earth did that happen? Yeah. Is that just me? Yeah, it is a unique take.
No.
Spain had that
very niche reference, Jimmy.
A little bit, yeah.
Spain had that mantle for a long time, though, didn't they? If you go back to, crikey, I want to say the 90s, the 80s, the 90s, they were always thought of as, the strongest, one of the strongest countries never to actually win anything. And then they won everything for about 10 years. Belgium could go far here. We know they've got a lot of form in their team, but I'm not sure I'd be.
But I think this is the group where this is the group where the top seed potentially. This is the one that could come a cropper for, in this group, because quite easily, if Belgium just don't click, Croatia, Canada, even Morocco could easily, pick up points, a draw against them, and before you know it, they're struggling to get out of the group.
Yeah, this group's an interesting one. If somebody doesn't win it at a canter, I think everybody from this group struggles, because they actually play the runner-up of the Germany-Spain group in the next round. And they're going to need form. They're going to need consistency to get through whoever they kind of face in that game thereafter. So if Belgium can, start well, get some good results and pick up some momentum, they've certainly got the players to go far, and they've got the good side of the draw, I suppose, on the what I would call the bottom half. But this is a banana skin, but I'd fancy Belgium to do it. But Croatia, we've all seen how difficult they can be for any opponent, and Canada as well. Canada, their squad's greatly improved over the years, so potentially they're fast, they've got pace, so it'd be interesting. Probably a good one for the neutral to watch, I think.
Well, the Oracle.
Okay, so let's move on to
Croatia to win and Morocco to finish second. The Oracle.
Morocco to finish second. Yeah, come on, Morocco. Yeah, you can do this.
Morocco.
So let's move on to Group G, which is has got the favourites.
Des thinks it's a bloke called Marco Rocco or something like that.
Hold on. No, I'm not going to say it. Don't say it, Des.
Now, so Group G. So I've only got one question for Group G. It is the question of the World Cup. I'm going to bring up the Brazil squad for you. And it's just a simple question. Alisson or Edison? Who are you
Alisson.
starting with?
No question. Alisson.
Says the Liverpool
Oh, yeah.
fan. Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
he
Shock
started.
take there.
He started the last 2 or 3 games for them, so I think he's the number one.
But there's not a lot between the two, is there? It
Oh
feels
God,
a little
no!
bit
Edison's
like
an excellent
like
goalkeeper.
Shilton and who's the
yeah.
other? Yeah, and
Clemens.
That's it. Yeah, that basically, just two absolute worldies and just unfortunate to be around at the same sort of time. What do we think of that Brazil squad?
David Seaman and Nigel Martin then.
I mean, this Brazil again, it's one of those where you go, when we brought up the French squad, we just went, you went, wow, you're kind of this Brazil squad again. You're kind of just really, there's no weakness here at all, is there?
There is Richarlison.
No,
I'd just like to point him out.
Well, yeah. It's one of the first Brazil squads I can remember where the defense actually looks as good as the rest of the field.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually.
Normally it's easy for Brazil. We're just going to score a couple more than you do, but actually they've got such a strong defensive line as well, which makes me think.
Hang on, have you just used a lyric from the Fat Les Vindaloo song?
Did I?
We're going to score one more than you.
I said a couple, but anyway. But I think that probably lends the remix. Yeah, that definitely lends to Alisson playing. I think Alisson's better with the ball at his feet, not by a huge amount, but he's definitely. I think he's a better keeper with the ball at his feet, and I also think he's a better shot stopper than Edison. So I'd expect Alisson to start, but take Fred out of it, but everybody else looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, if somebody wants to tell me how Fred is even near the Brazilian squad, I'd love to know.
Fred's when they need some bookings to slow a game down, that's when Fred's coming on. He's going to roll into somebody and then just break up play. That's what Fred's there for.
I just looked this up. This isn't off the top of my head. Alves and Thiago Silva are 77 combined.
Bloody
wow.
hell. I think that's a good point. I think there's there is some age in that Brazilian back line.
I mean, Neymar's getting on a bit, isn't he? Yeah.
Well, he is. He's still a talented player, but I think the other point sort of related to Neymar is I don't think he's particularly well loved by some of his teammates, and I think there was an article about Martinelli a couple of days ago where some ex-Brazil striker was questioning, who is he and why is he being selected over some player that plays for Fluminense or some other team down there. So there's always the potential for a little bit of, afters in a Brazil squad. They're some super talented players there, but how will they stick together for a week or two? That's got to be a question with Brazil.
But we're going to assume that they should get out. Well, I say get out of this group. It's not an easy group, is it? They should get out of this group, but the Serbia, Switzerland, and Cameroon in there, they're not easy games.
No, Switzerland have been quite solid over the last sort of 4 to 8 years. They don't set the world on fire, but they're pretty defensive. Their goalkeeper's very, very good. I think somewhat underrated. Serbia can kick you about the pitch and cause you some hassles. And Cameroon I don't think that I'd be surprised if there's many teams as pacey and sort of on the front foot as Cameroon are actually in the world. So Brazil should do what they've got. I think Brazil's squad's also massively in form. When you think of Martinelli, you think of Amirian, you think of Jesus, they are very much in form as well. So if they can gel, they should be somewhat unstoppable. But yeah, the second place is anybody's. I think I've chosen Cameroon as my favourites for second, but it wouldn't surprise me if any of the other two got there ahead of them.
I shall
Natalie,
check, Simon Lawler. I'm on it.
Do you have the wall chart, Natalie? Is there a route for a Brazil-France final?
Well, Natalie's working that. Let me bring up the final group, but obviously we've saved the best to last because it's obviously got one Cristiano Ronaldo in this, who's been really poorly for the past couple of weeks, not been available for Man United, surprisingly. Who knew that would be the case? I think this might be his last. Well, he's saying he might go on one more World Cup, but we think this is probably going to be his last one. So Portugal with Ghana, Uruguay, and the Korea Republic. Portugal, pretty strong, I guess, and probably favourites for this group comfortably, or do we think there's a surprise there with Uruguay? I guess being the next ones that might cause an upset there.
I think this could be an interesting one, Leigh. I think South Korea again have done well at World Cups previously. Uruguay, you expect to go for it. Ghana, the African countries tend to be physically strong. Portugal, I mean, there's no Jota there. Ronaldo's not at his best, clearly.
Well, let me bring up the Portuguese squad for you, Des, so you can see that.
I mean,
again,
lots of great.
It's packed with talent. Although I'm now wondering if that is exactly the right one, because
Jota's on that. I didn't think he went. I have to say,
Leigh, I think you've misclicked. You've just pulled up Wolves' starting squad from the last 2 weeks.
Very good.
Yeah.
Spanish manager's going to cause.
Actually, that might have been the squad for the playoffs, the one before. So it might be that could be one which is not quite 100% accurate. Actually, looking at it.
The answer is no, Simon Law. There is not. They either meet, irrespective of whether France come first or second, they either meet in.
See, I think that's quite sad. I think all draws should be done in a way that any final is possible. I think the Rugby World Cup next year is a similar situation.
Just see if Brazil can run us up. Actually, that's a good point.
So, do we think then that I'm guessing, if we think Portugal can get through this group? I mean, I don't really know much about Ghana to know whether they're within kind of current African teams, whether they're actually up there with the likes of I guess Senegal are probably the ones that are really.
I was about to say, I'm sure Dan could tell us where they are in the exchange, but then he just left, just as I was about to say.
They've qualified, right? They've qualified, so they're there.
Uruguay were getting really good a few World Cups ago, weren't they? But not sure how.
1930, they were really strong.
Well, 30 and 50, they were pretty decent.
It's around the time you started secondary school, wasn't it, JP?
Pretty much. Nice one. You can have that.
So that's the groups. So we've talked through everything that we think is going to go on there. So before we get on to kind of where we think this is ultimately going to go with the kind of the eventual outcomes, let's move on to the kind of the charity bets and the things that we've put together, because then we can also then get some guys in the chat to talk about this. So what we've agreed to do is all 5 of us have picked a bet. We've put £10 on that bet, and any money that we win is going to go to the Hearts of Queens Christmas appeal. So first of all, Natalie, do you just want to quickly let people who don't know what Hearts of Queens is or don't know what you're doing for Christmas to know how this money will get used should any of us actually run good and manage to win this cash?
Which is
slim.
Massive. This could be a really pointless. This could be a pointless segment. For anybody who hasn't yet found out, the Hearts of Queens project was an initiative I started on International Women's Day this year. It works within the poker industry to raise money and items for women's charities across the country. The bread and butter being that the items donated at specific poker festivals go directly to the communities of where the location of the poker festival is. So when we did one in Coventry for Goliath, it's gone to Coventry, etc., etc. To finish the year, we've had a really successful year. We only started in March, so only 9 months this year, but we decided to do a Christmas appeal that was national focus. And it was just a collaboration with APAT towards the end of the year, where we would essentially support a national appeal. And we are raising money for the Refuge Christmas appeal. And our Refuge are one of the biggest domestic violence charities in the country. They do a lot of work for women and children to get them out of quite dangerous situations. They're doing a Christmas appeal this year where you can buy Christmas packages for the women's in their shelters. So every £15 that, you could spend £15 of the money that you donate by getting a children's Christmas parcel with toys in there for women and children who fled to a shelter for that night. £25 you can buy a Christmas dinner parcel, so you can buy a Christmas dinner for the families that are in the shelter. There's a baby sleep parcel, there's an emergency accommodation parcel, or if for the really larger donations, you can run a refuge over Christmas for £500. You can that's how much it costs to run a refuge for one day for the women who are there. So we are supporting Refuge. The Christmas appeal is being launched at the squads event with DTD next weekend. With the APAT at DTD next weekend. It's going to be done by way of a raffle. We have lots of raffle prizes, starting off with first prize, which is a pair of collector's items trainers. I'm going to get this all wrong. Dan Alston's going to kill me. But Dan Alston has very kindly donated. So he's going to run the online raffle. You get a number generated for every X that you buy in terms of donations, and it'll be some kind of special trainers. We've also got other items in there as well. We've got limited edition 2022 tour t-shirt. We've got 5 sets of Hearts of Queens goodie bags. We've got Hearts of Queens water bottles. We've got little silly prizes to raffle off, but obviously the main idea being that we collected ones.
And of course an APAT.
I was just going to say, I can't remember where we got to on that. So yeah, APAT are very kindly donating a tournament ticket as well. So we will be, I think, keep an eye out online, because Dan Alston will be running the online raffle, but I think we will also be selling raffle tickets next weekend at the squads event. So myself and our team will be around just collecting and giving you raffle tickets.
Awesome.
And yeah, it's going to be really good. Thank you so much, guys.
Brilliant. So we're going to try and raise a bit of money with some of these bets. So what we're going to do is, so we've already picked our bets. I've got them up. I'll bring them on the screen now, and we can talk through why we've chosen what we've chosen. But we're going to place a 6th bet, right? So I've got one £10 bet to go, and what I need you guys to to come up with some suggestions in the chat. Once we've gone through our bets, we'll try and pick something that somebody thinks is a good thing. Ideally, if you can pick it off Sky Bet for me and give us some sort of odds and give us a rough idea whether we think it's going to be value or not, we'll do that. So I'll go first and explain myself. I've been a bit cheeky, guys, and I took some boosted value that was available on Sky Bet with my ones. So yeah, so I've been a little bit on the cheeky side. So at 8-1. I've gone for Harry Kane to score 4 or more goals in the group stages.
Do you want to raise any money for this charity?
You beat me to it, Natalie.
Seriously.
That's the words right out.
I don't know. We're very good at getting penalties against Iran. So
I looked at that group and thought there is no reason why England are not going to turn up and absolutely smash this. So I've gone for that. I think there's nothing I'd like to see more than Harry Kane putting the ball in the back of the net for the English. That would be fantastic. So that's the one I've gone for. Right, Des, you are up next, my friend.
Can I just say, Simon Lawler said, "Oh dear," to that opening salvo.
So Des, you're up next. So you mentioned Group E earlier on. You felt that the teams in that, whoever goes through, would go far, and you've gone for the winner of the whole tournament to come from Group E at 4-1. So do you want to explain?
Yeah, I don't know that there's a lot to it. I just thought that it was a nice little tasty 2-4, if you like. So you're taking a shot on both Germany and Spain to come out of the group, and for one of them to have a decent run along the way. So that'll go into opposing sides of the draw in the last 16. And one assumes that they'll both get through. Of course, that might not be the case. I don't need them both to get through. But it's just a cheeky little, they're experienced tournament countries. 4-1 return there, I think would be very nice.
Excellent stuff. Natalie up next, and Natalie has gone for 5+ corners in every group stage fixture. So that's at 5-1. So we're going to be cheering corners then, Natalie.
We are. This was quite a specific one. I've been thinking about corners all week for a very, very the last end of this week, because I was at a client event on Thursday. We did a massive business development event in Manchester, and it was a quiz night, and one of the rounds was World Cup anthems, which I was delighted with. Slightly robbed, though, in that the first 5 questions were national anthems, which I did not sign up for. But that's slightly. But the last 5 were World Cup songs, and one of the ones was to you had to say what year this particular song was done, and one of the ones was the meat pie sausage roll song. So I've had "Come on England, give us it back." Oh, it's a corner all week in my head. I went with corners because I've had an earworm with that all week. So I went for the corners.
That's fair enough. So we'll move to JP next. So we've moved from corners, JP, to penalties.
Oh, good Lord.
So yes, this was inspired by
What?
the aforementioned Dan. So Dan Alston from the last World Cup. We was in a chat and a group with him where we did some bit, and he said, because that was the first time I believe VAR had been used, the 2018 World Cup, whatever they called it then.
Oh,
And
God, yeah,
he said, you've got to be on. He didn't have a bet like this. He actually was on individual game, penalty in the game. You know, I think it was sort of 3-1 most games, and it was clear value because the amount of innocuous knocks, handballs that were then getting reviewed and turned into penalties. So that was in my mind. I just thought, what have we got? 64 games, something like that. So you're looking at just under a penalty every other game.
Interesting.
Doesn't seem an unreasonable.
There was 29 penalties in the 2018 World Cup.
Okay.
That feels a good bet. Feels a good bet.
I can't remember if
it was. Yeah, that's when VAR came in. Is that for that tournament? So and it's
So,
quite sweaty throughout the tournament. Like I say, it's hopefully we'll be able to like track it, and it will be deep into it before we lose interest.
Neat.
So that's 4 bets in. We've all gone fairly simple, straightforward. Picked something, not really giving it too much.
Here comes Dan.
We get to Dan. So if you just all want to grab a paper and pen at home, and you can then, Dan will now talk you through this structured bet that I had to place this afternoon. Over to you, Mr. Williams.
I mean, it's not that structured. I think it's somewhat straightforward. I've tried to look at a little bit of value and turn it into an accumulator. So you're getting, 8-1 here. I think Ecuador to qualify from Group A. We know that Netherlands are in there, but Qatar and Senegal I don't feel are up to the task. So I think just over even money just on them qualifying. We talked about Senegal and Ecuador potentially being a coin flip. Well, we're getting over coin flip odds. So I think anytime we can do that, it's value. Argentina and Mexico in their group. Again, we've discussed that in some detail. Poland may be potentially a bit of a banana skim, but I think Mexico have got enough. And I think 2.63 there is really good value. And then Portugal and Uruguay to finish in the top 2, either which way in their group as well. I think to me, it makes sense. It seems good on paper. Can't imagine.
And if it all comes in, it's just over 90 quid for Hearts and Queens. So let's and he's properly thought about this.
Yeah, I didn't think that was allowed.
And actually, I'd like to say, I know before we went on air, I'm pretty sure, and Natalie, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm pretty sure that you're confident in Brazil to win this World Cup. Would they be your pick if I had to throw one at you?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so at the moment on the exchange, you're getting about 4-1, 5 on them. So I'm just going to put 20 quid on them for you. So if they win,
thank you.
Then
Nice.
there you go. We've got it matched. It's all matched and ready to go. So there's 20 quid on Brazil there. So if they win, then I'll send you over the 100
Thank
quid.
you.
Well,
Very
what I'll
hard
do,
not to get very emotional.
Oh,
with
that's
this.
very good of you.
What I'll do, Natalie, is I'll just
So
send
what
you
we
the
need-
20
what we
quid,
need now,
okay?
Thanks, Des.
So what we need now is we need a sixth bet. So in the chat, somebody come up with something that you want us to do, and I've got a £10 bet ready to go on something that somebody in the chat comes up with that they think is up for grabs. So so let's get back onto the kind of the outrights now. So we spoke earlier on, or somebody was asking, can so and so play so and so in the final? So there is actually a market for the teams in the final, which is I think it's that one. Yeah. So it's joint favourites for that. So Argentina versus France, Brazil versus England. What? And Brazil versus France. So they're all at 14-1.
This
Oh, they
bloody world charts and nonsense.
It would have to be a thing because potentially one can win and one can runner up in a group, right? So they can go into different.
Exactly. But I did all through them. This is. I'm writing a strongly worded letter to whoever did this world chart. It's a duffer.
So interestingly, when I did my playthrough before we came on air, I have Argentina and Brazil in one semi, and France and Belgium in the other, and I have an Argentina-France final personally. But it seems to make sense. It seems to make sense.
That looks. I mean, at 14-1, that feels a much better odds than picking the actual winner, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It does.
Yeah, I think.
And again, Dan, would I be right in saying obviously these odds will significantly change once the groups get formed up? So if you're confident that these two teams will top their group, then
Odds will
this is the time to do it.
And this is kind of how I approach most of these big major tournaments. So taking the Brazil game out, I have money spread across lots of teams. None of them I potentially think are going to win the tournament. All ones I think that will get out of the groups, and then because of their draws in the last 16 will reduce that I can then lay off in the market and just lock up some profit. Teams like England, teams like Belgium, Mexico, Uruguay, Ecuador, Portugal, and the Netherlands are all potentially for that. So getting on at 14-1 is not bad at all. I don't think for any of those top three.
That's fair. Simon Lawler does make the point, wouldn't be the first time Sky Bet have offered odds on something that can't occur. There is that possibility. I kind of assumed that the book was is sort of
no, I
okay.
think I found the route in this stupid thing. Yeah, I think
it's on the back.
Yeah, it relies on both France and Brazil winning their groups, but they've got the quarterfinal things all like weirdly written. Like you think that was 1, 2, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, not 1, 2, 3. Yeah, stupid.
France and Brazil
this
to win
like
their groups, probably not unreasonable.
Lost her shit with what she's doing. Oh, it's this and son. I don't want to do this anymore.
God damn it! Oh.
Bang goes that BBC Sport contract, Natalie. That's
honestly. I think I got found out about that quite a long time ago. I don't think it was a World Cup. I don't think it was a World Cup world chart that was my downfall with that, to be honest.
So interestingly, these odds on actually the two teams to meet in the final are much better than I guess the odds on actually who's going to win it overall. So we've already mentioned Brazil are favourites. Are we looking anything out of the side of the top three, really? Brazil, Argentina, or France?
I think
you've clearly written off England already.
Yeah.
I haven't written England off. I'm not writing us off.
Yeah, I know. Des quite fancies Spain or Germany.
I'd go down to Netherlands, and there might be one or two other crazy teams that make a run. I just sense that this one is an open one, guys.
I agree with you, Des. Yeah, I think all the things we talked about at the top, not the reason it's in the country, but the timing of it, the strange dynamic, the amount of injuries people have picked up. I think it does open it up quite a lot.
Going to be a cracking World Cup.
That's fair enough. Yeah, I think so. So we've got a couple of bets, potential options coming in. So Paul Haycock suggested Argentina and Belgium to both make the semis at 15-2.
Yeah,
is an option. Simon Lawler is suggesting we should just go with the France versus Brazil final at 14-1.
I like that.
Two good bets there, to say the least. One that did get mentioned, I think it might have been Tristan actually, Des, in the chat. You might be able to go back and find it. Was saying no bets on the on the Golden Boot.
Yes.
I have got the Golden Boot market, so let me bring that up. With Harry Kane obviously looking to do the business again at 7-1. Mbappe seems good value in there. If we think France are going to go all the way.
It's difficult though, because I think France, the goals can be spread out, right? Whereas England, they're probably not going to be, because Kane will be just playing up by himself. And we score lots of penalties and not many goals in open play at the moment. So I don't know. I think if Lukaku's a good shout, if you think they're going to make it deep, it's not particularly.
What do you think of Gabriel Jesus at 33-1?
Is he going to play?
Yeah, he's gone off the boil a bit recently, hasn't he?
I just don't know if he gets in that starting 11.
Yeah, I think
that's the question.
It's a good call.
So, is there anybody that we think? Because obviously we've focused in on the main countries, the kind of top of the. Who do we think could be a star potential? Tournament, best player that maybe isn't from one of those top countries that might just be able to, put themselves in the shop window, maybe.
Best player or top scorer, Lee?
Well, either or, because I guess they come with a similar sort of thing, isn't it? Really, if it's
I I think if the Netherlands go deep, I think that Denzel Dumfries could surprise some people. If they can go deep and score some goals, I think he's going to be really, really important. And he'd probably be a massive rank outsider.
Yeah, I was just going to say he's not even on the list. I don't think I can't even see him on here.
No.
I think it shouldn't be a surprise if it occurs, but Bellingham could have a really good World Cup. I could see him, suddenly, outside of the top clubs that have been looking at him, but I could see him suddenly becoming a proper world star.
Yeah, I hope he matches the belief, because we've seen it all too often, haven't we? I mean, everything, he hasn't barely put a foot wrong so far, but obviously we don't see him every week.
Yeah,
I think for England it depends on who they pair him with in midfield. I think if they pair him with Calvin Phillips, I don't think that's going to give him. I think he's going to have to work a lot harder. If they pair him with someone like Declan Rice, I think he's going to have a lot more freedom in that middle of the pitch.
Well,
and I think they will. I think you're right, and I think they will, because Rice will sit. And I think that's exactly what they need.
Well, and I think the thing with Rice is it also gives England the opportunity to play with a back four if they need to. I think one of the big things I feel we struggled with, I know the results went well, but we definitely felt like we were chasing the ball a lot in the Euros. Definitely from sort of the second half onwards, having three at the back and then two wing backs kind of left us a little bit open in the middle of the park. Whereas playing a player like Rice, who is naturally a phenomenal centre-back as well as a defensive midfielder, allows you to kind of play with like more of a flat back four, which I think for the defenders he's chosen actually suits us better. I think you could pair like Stones and Walker as centre-back pairings potentially, who have both got pace and Stones can play with the ball. But by doing that and having Rice sitting in and playing really deep just opens up players like Maddison or Bellingham or whoever else they choose to put in that midfield, if Southgate chooses to do it. But he could play defensively in there, and then I think Bellingham gets a little bit lost. So I think it's definitely down to the starting 11 on whether Bellingham's going to really have the opportunity to shine. And I hope he does, because I think he's a major talent.
Good player, right? I tell you who I'll be interested to see play in this World Cup is Darwin Núñez. So he's obviously Uruguayan, right? So he's going to be playing. I'm not sure which group were they in. It didn't seem like the strongest group, Uruguay.
They in with Belgium. Is that right?
Yeah.
Is that right, Leigh?
Yeah.
Belgium, Cameroon, is it?
No, Portugal, Ghana, South Korea.
There you go. Okay.
The last one.
Assuming this is right. Right now, I'm not making.
We're not taking that for granted. He's been in a hot run of form. He's scored in each of the last 4 or 5 games. He's very fast. He's very physical. He's great in the air. He could have a good World Cup.
I think you're right. I think obviously the Korean Republic aren't the biggest of teams. They're not the strongest of teams, and I think they'll definitely be able to outmuscle them. And defensively, Ghana aren't. Well, they're not known for their defensive prowess. We know that much. And Portugal, I don't think Portugal's defense is as strong as it once was. And they're not, again, not to be heightist, they're not the tallest, are they? They're not the most physical at the back, I don't think. Yeah. Not as much as they used to be. So depending on the service he gets, he could be good.
Was Ghana Uruguay the 2010 game with the Suarez handball on the line?
Say that again, JP.
Is that a rematch? Was it a quarter final when Suarez handled it on the line to prevent the ball going in? Got sent off, obviously. Then they missed the pen. Uruguay went on to win. Is it a rematch of that?
I can't remember.
That's That's a very specific knowledge. I don't even remember that.
You must remember Suarez getting sent off and then.
Yeah, it was Ghana. There you go.
Yeah, I thought so.
Did he bite anyone? Was he sent off for the pen or the afters?
He was sent off for the pen on this occasion. That was not one of his 3 recorded bites in his career.
I tell you what, we talked briefly about Núñez there. Well, what a shame that Mr. Man City isn't there. I mean, he'd light up a World Cup, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
Haaland,
an insane striker. A big miss here, I think, for sure.
Haaland is going to be another like a Gareth Bale, isn't it? In that he's going to need to try and find a way of getting some more players around him in the Norwegians team, and then trying to get to somebody too. Because it would be a shame to think that he could go through his career and really struggle to get to play in a Euros or a World Cup. Somebody of his talent.
Yeah, he could maybe change his name to Tom and get selected by Brazil.
Yeah.
Does he have any?
Alf.
Don't think you need him. You just need a,
To go along with
name.
Fred, it'll be Alf,
short-
wouldn't it?
a
Alf
short
and
name.
Fred.
Tom and Fred in midfield.
Can I chuck in?
So-
Natalie's inspired me with talking about a quiz. Can I chuck in one of my ridiculous, stupid, lateral thinking quiz questions? If you'll remember,
Go for it.
If you'll remember the Javid
keep
Miandad,
selling it. Keep
fiasco.
selling it.
You remember the Javid Miandad fiasco? That got me punched at various tournaments. So the question is, which? Let me get this the right way around. Hang on. Yeah, which England player played against his teacher in the 1998 World Cup finals? So I'll leave that one hanging.
School teacher, not football teacher. As in a school teacher.
Were you around for the Javid Miandad question, Natalie?
Yeah, you can't ask any questions about it. You've got to look
really?
look into the way he's worded it and go with that. So yeah.
There's got to be a manager.
So Tom Bacon in the chat has said outside bets on Ericsson at 50s and Valverde at 66s for the golden ball. I was going to say, so who do we think is going to be player of the tournament? Who's going to be the one that's going to really set the tournament alight? Are we looking at just obvious names? Are we looking at
Mbappe?
Great shout, Ericsson.
Is it likely to be a Messi or a Neymar, or are they a little bit past it? Are we expecting somebody else to come through? Is Mbappe the obvious name?
Oh, there's a lot of people thought Mbappe should have got it last time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, does it have to be from the team that goes on to win it?
no, because I think didn't Messi get it in 2014
Yeah, it can be.
when they lost in the final? I think Messi got it when they were beaten finalists.
I think you need to get to the final.
Okay.
You
He's
know,
not a Super
in my
Bowl
opinion,
MVP.
in my opinion. So hard to know, really.
Was it? Sorry, JP. Was it Ben Foster?
It was not Ben Foster. 98 World Cup.
Yeah. I'm
You gotta
going
think
really wrong. I'm literally thinking of retired goalkeepers that are now goalkeeper coaches.
You have to think laterally. That's the thing. That's all I'll say. The same as the Javid Miandad one. You have to think laterally.
Doesn't make for great streaming, this.
It doesn't.
So meanwhile, Tom Bacon, who was on the show last week, and we said we should get him on the show this week as well, is in the chat entertaining the masses, making the point that the last three winners haven't been in the fight. Also, the next World Cup's being expanded, so good chance Haaland might well get in. Which is I don't know how they're expanding it to. What are they going to? I don't know how many more.
I think 128 countries, Lee. They're going to start it in April.
Is it? Surely it's not going to.
I think it is. There was talk about it.
Wow. Tom Bacon is essentially Google tonight. Have you noticed his chat box is essentially?
He's a good lad.
He literally is. He is actually just on Google at home, though. Really, I mean, it's sounding impressive, but okay. So I guess the next question to ask then is Simon Lawler says Seaman.
We're not that type of program, Simon.
That's the wrong tab, isn't it?
Okay.
Delete.
Get it together. Come on.
So then, we'll start with you, Natalie. Although you have kind of already said your pick. So who do you think is going to win and why?
My first instinct was always Brazil, just because looking at that squad, I kind of feel like I want to put France in there as well, but I'm going to stick with my gut instinct and say I think it's going to be Brazil.
Fair enough, JP.
Yeah, I can't see past those two. If I'm honest, I think I agree with what I said with Des earlier. It is more open than previous tournaments, but I think those two are a bit, have a clear sort of head and shoulders above the rest. And out of the two, I'm going to pick Brazil.
Dan?
France, I think, are my tournament favourites. Although as an outside shout, I think. Do I think? Yes, I think. I think Uruguay might be the dark horses.
What, to win the whole thing?
Dark horse, good shout.
Wow, okay.
The dark horse, but France on a betting line for me. France takes some beating.
What about you, Des?
Well, my dark horses are hungry. They're dark, particularly because they didn't qualify, but they had the form, right? England, folks, England are going to win the World Cup. I'm just shocked that not more of you believe that. Believe, guys, believe.
We want to believe, Des.
We do want to
believe.
I think England can win it. I'm being totally genuine. I think
I believe we
don't
can,
have a
but-
great route to the final. That's the problem.
you got to beat the good teams, right? And to be honest, I sort of fancy England against a good team almost more than I do against some of the weaker teams, because they always flatter to deceive, but generally in tougher matches, England sort of raise their game a bit.
Natalie, or maybe if I want the right answer, Tom Bacon, can we meet France in the quarterfinals? Is that what someone
Ouch.
said? Can you?
Oh no! Don't let me do this
wow.
again.
I want you to do the
Natalie,
chart.
can you get the wall chart out, please?
Yes, they can. They
We
can.
win our
Definitely
group.
They definitely can.
If we win our group, we face probably the Ecuador, and then we'd face France.
Okay.
We'd face
Because
Happy days.
guess
Take
where
that.
I'm going to be on the night of that game.
Okay.
I'm going to be in France. I'm going to be in France.
Oh,
that
really?
could-
Dear,
that could
oh
be
dear.
Ooh.
But I should be drunk as a skunk by then because it's my 50th
Lee,
birthday. So I won't care.
Lee.
Cole,
Who do you
I'm not having
think?
your 50, JP.
Who do you think will win the World Cup, Lee?
I hope it's Argentina, because I'd love to see Messi.
Yeah, good shout.
Get
That's
the
a
kind
nice
of
shout,
international
actually.
recognition that he I think he deserves. And they probably are up there. So I'll go Argentina. I think they just might be able to gel as a team, and actually they've got a pretty solid defensive lineup and some decent strikers. I'm not sure the midfield is probably strong enough. But yeah, we'll go with it. Yeah.
I can't believe that lack of patriotism, Lee. You're not calling him out, Des, for his lack of patriotism.
No, why are we
Well,
getting
to be
this
honest,
in
he's coming from a point of realism. I mean, some of the Welsh players might
So
not
if
be alive at
so
the
if
end
Wales,
of the tournament.
if we come second in the, well, actually, the way you lot are talking, we could top that group now. I was quite happy with second place, but I'm now thinking actually second place might be not high enough. I don't. Should I even be asking Natalie if we finish second, who we be playing in the
For the love of God.
It's likely to be the Netherlands, isn't
Netherlands, yeah.
it? Yeah. See, that's not an unreasonable knockout stage.
I think you'd
See
lose
where
at
you
that
go
one.
from there.
I do expect Wales to get second in that group, Lee. I don't think it's an absolute given, of course, but I think you might nick a point of England that I would think is reasonable. But you'll get a win somewhere else.
But I think the plan is that when it comes down to that third game, because it's Wales England is the final game, isn't it?
Yeah.
That if we've done what we should have done,
You'll
by
rest,
then we're
bail.
playing.
Yeah.
We're playing with no fear. It's just a case of whereas, I mean, for England, they'll probably want to top the group, whereas we're not bothered, so we can actually just go at that game. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays. It could be the results of the other games. It's what really matters. Because it could come down to goal difference.
I think Rob Page is doing a decent job, a really good job. But I just find it so surreal that a guy who wasn't deemed good enough for Northampton Town Football Club is now managing Wales at the World Cup. It's incredible.
Yeah,
and doing well. He did well at the Euros.
And you look at, we're likely to have kind of, Kiefer Moore leading the line, who's only just kind of was he on loan at Bournemouth as they came back up and is back in the Premier League again. But you look at that squad and it's just insane, really. But as a team, we're difficult to play against. We're never going to score a hatful of goals, but we can hold our own, which is it's going to be enjoyable. That's
what's happened to your man up at Rangers? Is he fit? Is he still on the scene?
Yeah. Just I don't think he's getting as many games, but everyone's fighting fit. Bale played in that ridiculous MLS
Scored, didn't
final
he?
game, came off the bench and scored the 128th minute equaliser to take it to penalties, but he had a bit of an injury, so didn't start that game. But I think the issue is in one respect, as you said at the start of the show, it's great that there's not all this faff and waiting for it to happen. But at the same time, for anyone that's just finished playing this weekend and has picked up a bit of a niggle, you don't really have very long to do anything about it, do you? No. I guess that's why they've extended the squads maybe to 26 to try and give a bit more flexibility for people and what they can do. And I'm gutted for anybody that doesn't make it because they picked up an injury, which isn't anything too serious, but it's enough to keep them out of the World Cup. That's it's pretty much a shame if that happens.
Yeah, it happened with one of England's attacking players for the Euro for the final. And I remember Southgate, I think it was Mason Mount. And he said it's just such a ridiculous injury. It's a nothing.
Yeah.
It just means he can't play tonight. I think it was Mason Mount. I'm not 100% sure on that.
No,
that's life, though, isn't it? It's
there's not a huge amount you can do about it. That's the way it's going to go. So we are just on the poker side of it. We are we've got 3 players left in the Turbo, Des. So I'm not a million miles away from being able to let everybody know the
who won the PLO.
The PLO. You are taking the mick, aren't you?
Did he win it?
No. No. Oh, right. I assumed you had the lobby open, and you very well know it's somebody from Kazakhstan whose name.
No, I was being a cheerleader. That was a genuine question.
I thought, Natalie, surely you wouldn't put me through that, would you? No,
I was cheerleading my buddy. I'm sorry. I thought I.
No, Paul Simon finished 3rd in the end. So he missed out on getting heads up. But so we're just down to 3 in the Turbo Knockout, and then I'll be able to let you know where we're at for Leaderboard Ladders for the week. But it's exciting. I'm quite looking forward to just the different dynamic of a Winter World Cup, and it's the fact that it's a different time of the year and other things going on. I think it'll just have an interesting vibe, and as we all said at the beginning of the show, one which you just kind of have to embrace and kind of go with the flow of what it'll be.
I tell you what was weird today, and this was a point I was thinking about earlier on at the end of end of a game today. We had a end of season lap of honour because our players aren't going to see us for a month, and
that is weird.
What game was that, Natalie? Was there a game?
There were a game today, Natalie. You didn't mention it.
Yeah, just some kind of like easy walkover, like a bit of a training session. Really, it was very, very kind of Sky to put our training session live on television. It was quite good, but it was genuinely quite weird. They did a lap of honour, and everyone was like, "Oh, I'll see you in a month," and everyone was saying goodbye, going. That was really weird. But I think when we talked earlier about there's not really been a build-up and you don't know whether fans are going to get on board with this, actually, I think the opposite might be true because we're in the middle of a season and we're expecting to go to our next league fixture next week. And there will be an absence of football and there will be a hunger, I think, for to plug that gap that we've got, when you're expecting the run up to Christmas, November fixtures to go all the way through. And so I think
what's the deal with the Championship? Are you back? So the League One and League Two are carrying on unless you've got certain number that are out. But then does the Championship come back slightly before the Premier League or not?
It's the same.
Okay.
Which is great for us because apart from Connor Roberts, who isn't in our first team at all at the moment, we've got no players going to the World Cup. So we literally have a month now to just completely rest.
And your first game back is?
Oh God, I have no idea. Please,
I can help
thank
you if you want.
Yeah. Is it QPR?
Your first came back. No. Much easier than that. You've got a little trip to Old Trafford.
Oh, I thought you meant league. Bloody hell, man. We're back in the Carabao Cup, aren't we? Yeah, that's going to be another training session, which is going to be great. So.
Oh, very good. So, I mean, I'm obviously my Carabao Cup experience with JP earlier on in the week. That went to penalties and everything. It was proper exciting, wasn't it, JP?
Well, it really was, and I described it to Henry when I got back here. I said the thing is, if they'd let all the Southampton squad and all the coaches and actually all the fans take a pen I don't mean the Wednesday keeper still would have saved one, would he? He was nowhere near.
He didn't get near a single.
He had a good
one
90 minutes, didn't he? He had a very good 90 minutes, but he
played really well.
Pence, unfortunately.
I was kind of jealous.
Your beloved team won me a lot of money at the beginning of this season, so thank you for that. Those draws were phenomenal, unbelievable. We have a thing every week with a group of friends where we have to pick a home win and away win and a draw. And I picked Burnley one week just randomly, and they drew. So I picked them for 3 weeks in a row. So thank you, Burnley. You can start winning now. I'll stop picking you, but
I didn't really have anything to do with that, and it was way more painful for me than it was for you. But I'm glad somebody got some enjoyment out of all of those 98-minute equalisers.
So Simon Lawler's in. See, Simon's agreeing with what I thought, but I thought I'd ask the person who supports the Championship side. Simon seems to think the back on the earlier beginning. I think the assumption is that you won't have any players that have gone deep.
Actually, that does make sense. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So Simon seems to think back in the, and I'll be honest, I do trust Simon.
I trust him way more than
weekend of the 10th. The back weekend of the 10th.
Lovely.
Yeah.
There you go.
And but Simon's comment regarding the Sheffield Wednesday goalkeeper was he a Chinese goalkeeper? His name was Wong Wei. Which is very good.
I mean, it's appropriate. He did. Yeah, apart from the Ward-Prowse penalty, he did actually go the wrong way, didn't he, for all of them?
We're watching it going, just dive the other way. Just seriously,
Leigh,
try it.
We can't talk. We have David Des in goal. I don't think he's got close to a penalty in about 7 years.
No, I
tell you,
the weekend of the World Cup final. In the Championship, there's an APAT Show derby. Burnley Borough.
Okay. Should we get them both on and do a watch along? That'd be entertaining, wouldn't it? Yeah,
3 o'clock kickoff. It's safe. If it was an evening game, I'd say no. Let's not have Stu on.
I'm going to very much enjoy Stu just getting more and more angry and drunk as the next goal goes in, and we absolutely.
Let's do it live.
Yes, let's do it. He won't agree to that. He won't agree.
Fan zone.
Right then, so the decision I need to make then, guys, is we need to put this 6th bet on. So what do we have? We had Paul's was it 2 teams to get to the semi-final, which was about 15-2. We had Simon Lawler suggesting France-Brazil final at 14-1.
I like that.
Were they the 2 that we had?
I think we should let Nat pick.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, should we just do them both?
Yeah.
Oh, go on then.
Should we make it a magnificent 7 and we'll do them both? All right, we'll put both those on as well. So that's 7 bets in total. We'll keep an eye, obviously, on it over the coming weeks whilst we're on the show. Next week, obviously, we're at Poker Squads live, so we'll be doing something from Nottingham for that. But then, obviously, we'll be back doing online stuff throughout December. Although, as I said last week, Leaderboard Ladders will stop at the end of November. So be aware of that. It's going to take a break over the Christmas period. So we're having a nice break over December because basically I've been typing in somewhere in the region of let's see what we're up to now. About 13,000 names over the past year. So we're going to have a break in December from it.
There's this thing called cut and paste, Lee. You should look into that.
Nah, it sounds far too complicated for me. But what I can say to you is that the Turbo Knockout for the night has now concluded. It wouldn't have actually made any difference to the top of the table anyway. But very well done to Rodrigo de Santana from Brazil, who won the Turbo. Is that a sign?
It's a sign.
Is that a sign?
Oh.
He beat a player from Chile into 2nd place. They're not in it, so that maybe that doesn't really work. But anyway, Kevin Gale from Germany was 3rd. Our friend from Kazakhstan won the PLO, beat Mika Martilla from Finland into 2nd place. Paul Haycock was 3rd, and Danny Weaver was 4th. The actual main event of the No Limit Hold'em, that was what went to Peru. Leoncia Manuz picked up the win there, beating Ivan Kuzic from Ukraine. And the deep stack earlier on, that was a German winner. Florian Ritz beat Pontus Dahlgren from Sweden, heads up in that one. So that ends up with couple of points for one Tom Clark tonight, which means he has just edged Richard Rudling Smith at the top of the leaderboard for the week. 6 cashes. 6 cashes for Tom Clark. That is a back-to-back win for Mr. Clark. So very well done. So last week he picked up 3 lots of $5.50 tickets. This week he's going to pick up 3 lots of $11 tickets, and he moves up another step. We've got to keep our eye on him, Des.
He's a cheap date so far, Lee. A cheap date.
Yeah, that might not last for very much longer, I reckon. So Richard Rudling Smith finished second. Richard Rudling Fish. Yeah, sorry for the slip of the tongue there, but meant in the right spirit. Danny Weaver finished third. Dylan Herbert fourth, and Tony Ross sneaks into the top 5 as well. So well done to all of you guys. Leaderboard Ladders happens again from tomorrow, but bear in mind we are now 2-3 weeks out from putting a halt to that. So we will let you know when that's all coming to a conclusion. But that's us done for the weekdays.
Fantastic. Top job. The Oracle did post there. Lee, could you put the bets up in the Facebook group so the guys can follow along as well through the tournament? Can't wait.
We will do.
Right, all starts next.
JP, I need to know the answer to this question.
Can we have the answer before we go?
Is there a botanist in one of the squads potentially?
Is there
botanist?
A botanist?
Tim Flowers.
Sure you understand.
What's that going to do with his teacher?
That's going back a bit, isn't it?
Tim Flowers. Basically, just for it.
AP, don't imagine his misery and explain it to him.
Basically, so the question is, which England player during the 1998 World Cup finals played against their teacher? And the answer is David Batty, because of course Argentina had Batty's tutor up front.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Batty's tutor.
I did warn you. I did warn you.
Oh my God.
Oh dear.
Go off, people, you know.
We can't end it like that, can we? Really?
That was me trying to figure out.
Look at Dan. Look at Dan's face.
That was almost as satisfying as searching for piece of K tickets during the week. Thank you, JP, for that high point of tonight's
You're welcome.
show. Batty's tutor. Right. Well, I guess, guys, with that, we shall call it tonight. Can't wait till next Sunday, of course. We've got squads. We've got the start of the World Cup. We have squads next week, Lee, right? Just keep me honest.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Squads next week. And the World Cup.
You coming to Nottingham? You're not sure yet.
Detail. You know me, I live that sort of life. Everything starts tomorrow, guys, so enjoy the poker for the rest of the week. Thank you to Natalie, JP, Dan, and Lee, of course, for being with us tonight, doing the World Cup thing. A great little session, I thought, guys. Very nice. Well put together, Lee. We shall see you again next week. Okay, cheers.